Um, 2 weeks from now will be yearly meeting Sunday, and we will not have our own Zoom meeting, but I will send out the link for yearly meeting as soon as I get that. Of course, those of us who live close are invited to go to the historic meeting house from 1858 and join with meetings in the early meeting and other guests for Sunday morning worship. And then stick around at 2 o'clock. That Carrie will be doing a concert at 2 to 3:30. I don't think it will be live, but if it is, I'll include the links to that as well. I'm not aware of any other announcements. Joys and concerns? It's a joy to have Lynn and Steve back.
We had a good time on our cruise from Memphis to New Orleans with our good friends from Denver, Steve and Wendy Kuiper. Unfortunately, the souvenir that they brought home with them was COVID.
Oh,
They've been sick and they're just now beginning to recover. So COVID is still around, not quite as maybe serious as it once was, but it's still around and this particular strain lasts about 10 days.
The joy part of that is that we didn't get it. That's a selfish joy, but nevertheless, we're thankful we didn't. I would ask you to remember my youngest sister, Vivian, in your prayers. She's got some weird health problems and going to have to do some genetic testing to see whether she needs to be worried about having passed it on to her kids and all kinds of weird stuff. She's always one. If there's a weird thing to have health wise, she will have it, and this is another one of those cases.
She
So,
has surgery coming up soon, doesn't she?
yeah. So she has short version of the story is she has three brain tumors. Our dad passed away of a brain tumor, and his was malignant. Hers are not, but it still brings up alarm bells for all of us. Yeah, her surgery I think is the first part of August, but has genetic testing and stuff between now and then. So if you would remember her, I would appreciate that.
And if you can hold my cousin Kathy Borkins, who lives in upstate Wisconsin, she passed away not last night, the night before.
well, as I mentioned, our big joy is that even though Nancy had a stroke, she bounced back from it. So we're quite thrilled. Um, Even in the midst of it, as the nurse was here, she still had her smart mouth. And her humor was still intact, and the nurse was just amazed who had not met Nancy before. And she wrote it in her notes, I guess. And so when our regular nurse showed up on Monday, she goes, I read the notes. And so it's just like, yeah, that's Nancy. So, um, so we're thrilled that she's back. Let's hold all these in God's light and love as we go into worship. The fellowship's always great before visiting. Today, Lynn is our worship leader, and she will lead us through the first half hour of worship as she feels led when she feels led.
Well, I just said to Steve the other day that I could hardly wrap my head around the fact that we were already beyond Memorial Day, and here we are almost to Independence Day. Seems like time flies pretty fast. My childhood memories of July 4th are of food, friends, and fireworks. There were 5 families in my hometown who always got together on Independence Day. Some of us saw each other every week at church, and all of us kids saw each other at school. But this was the only time all year that all of us got together at once, so it was a big deal. It was also a big deal because those 5 families had about 25 kids. So it was a huge deal, and we had lots of fun sharing picnics, chasing fireflies, and watching fireworks. It was fun with a capital F and little else in my childish mind. When I went to Ramallah to teach school, the word independence took on a new meaning. In preparation for going, I read lots of things about the situation there and about the Quakers' work there, and I thought I was prepared to go. I hadn't been there very long, though, before I realized how naive that thought was. There was nothing in my dairy farmer's daughter from central Indiana childhood that had prepared me for life under military occupation. I was not accustomed to civilians wearing machine guns as part of their everyday dress. I was not prepared to have armed soldiers the ages of my students wandering around in the streets. And I was dumbfounded by the idea that my students, because they were Palestinian, were not allowed to travel the 10 miles between Ramallah and Jerusalem without permission from the military governor. And in fact, most of them had never been there. The freedoms we take for granted here in the U.S. to travel where we want, when we want, and in whatever manner we want, and to express our opinions publicly, whether it's through a letter to the editor or a bumper sticker or on a t-shirt, are unknown in that part of the world. The only way my students could register their displeasure with how they were treated by the occupying power was to build barricades of rocks in the streets and burn tires. For stating their feelings in that manner, they were often carted off to prison. Eventually, I adjusted to this mind-blowing state of affairs, although friends I met when I returned to the U.S. told me I looked like I had PTSD. They probably actually said I looked like I was shell-shocked, since we didn't know the term PTSD at that point, but it was the same thing. All of this was 40-plus years ago, and things have only gotten worse since then. I've said many times since then that I think all Americans should live under military occupation for at least 6 months, because that would make us take our freedoms seriously rather than taking them for granted. I'm not sure beyond 6 months is useful, but 6 months would be an educational experience for sure. And I've also chosen to call July 4th Independence Day, because that reminds me, and anybody who's listening to me, of the importance of the day. Calling it July 4th is kind of like calling Christmas December 25th. It diminishes the significance of the day. Now, to my mind, this is the place in my talk where a good centering thought for meeting for worship should tie in to the Bible in some meaningful way. But the Bible doesn't talk about freedom and independence in the way that we're doing it today, so we're going to skip that part. On our trip down the Mississippi River last week, we had the pleasure of hearing many musical groups. One group consisted of 3 women called the Victory Bells from the World War II Museum in New Orleans. They dress in costumes that are reminiscent of the 1940s and sing songs that were popular then in beautiful 3-part harmony. At one point in their presentation, they started to sing a song that many people didn't seem to recognize because they weren't familiar with the verse. But when the singers got to the chorus, a hush fell over the crowd, and slowly audience members began to stand and sing along. The song was Irving Berlin's God Bless America. As I watched the crowd and sang along, it hit me that despite all the political and theological differences represented by members of the crowd, the one thing everyone could agree on was that they love America and what the country stands for. This is the bedrock for everyone. We differ on how to live out what the country stands for, but we love America. It seems that my thoughts these days are always turning on the idea of building bridges rather than walls, and for a moment, I saw a bridge. When I find myself around Independence Day or some other time thinking disparaging thoughts about people who hold differing ideas about how to live out their love for America, I hope I can remember that at rock bottom we all love our country and we want the best for her. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, and we might add here at home, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam, God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. As we bring this part of our meeting for worship to a close, I'd like to share the blessings of the Almighty God written by President Eisenhower. Before all else, we seek, upon our common labor as a nation, the blessing of Almighty God, and the hopes in our hearts fashion the deepest prayers of our whole people. May we pursue the right without self-righteousness. May we know unity without conformity. May we grow in strength without pride in self. May we, in our dealings with all peoples of the earth, speak the truth and serve justice. May the light of freedom, coming to all darkened lands, flame brightly, until at last the darkness is no more. May the turbulence of our age yield to a true time of peace, when men and nations share a life that honors the dignity of each, the brotherhood of all.
Thank you, Lynn. We'll now continue with a period of additional unprogrammed worship for those who can stay. For those who can't, Godspeed, have a good week, and we'll hope to see you next week.
Great message, Lynn. Thank you. I have to go.
I feel as though, um, what this country asks of us in its underlying principles is that we care for each other, no matter how alike or different we are, that each one of us is endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. We think of that, I don't know, I'm a legal professional, rights are like a trigger word, but, there's like, there is a sense that we each are have a stake in the success of the nation, and it will yield for each of us, not just for ourselves individually, but for all of us, something greater than what we could do on our own. I belong to a 12-step group, and we have certain ways that we conduct, or principles by which we conduct our group activities. And the first one is, that unity has to come first, that the greatest, the greatest good for the greatest number is what we're looking for. And yet, and in the closing, it says, you may not like all of us, but you'll love us in a very special way, the same way we already love you. And I think about how all the steps are suggested. They're not rules. Nobody marks you for your performance or anything like that. And you can have your own ideas about what is a higher power, or how you should operate your recovery, how your recovery works for you. So all those things, I think about how do we apply some of that in our national discourse? How can we love each other unconditionally without regard for your opinions? How can we see past the suffering that creates dissonance into the love that each of us has inside of us, that light, that inner light? And how do I notice the beam in my own eye, which, every day I'm forcing myself not to cross the road for someone who has cut me off in traffic, got a bumper sticker I don't like, whatever, to remember that, that we as a nation, it's just a construct. It's something to organize us around. It's nice to have, but the most important thing in many ways is that our national construct urges us into some humility individually, some love for one another, and that has got to all lead for me to a place where I can bring my own special God, my individual God, into with me into this public discourse. Not gonna lie, it's a challenge, but at Wellesley we had something that we called a while ago, few years ago, something we called the Love Initiative, where we practiced love techniques, and we overtly decided we were all going to love a lot of people. And I think we could use that kind of exercise on a bigger scale, because that's where it all is happening.
If all hearts are clear, we'll close meeting for worship for this morning.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Play Finlandia for us someday.
Bill, you can have this. I think this room got hot. Hot. Oh, I hit the wrong one.
Well, thank you all. It's good to see everyone.
Good to meet you, Steve and Catherine.
Love you guys.